The best of downtown from 7 to 8 a.m. on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket and 929theticket.com. This is the best of downtown.
Hey, good Sunday morning. It's the 7th day of September. You are locked into downtown 92.9 The Ticket and 929theticket.com. Rich Kimball and Brian Stackpole with you for the next hour, looking back at some of our favorite conversations of the week that was. We'll talk football, of course. Opening day for the Patriots today as they take on the Miami Dolphins. By the way, that pregame show, Andy Gresh, Gary Tangway, starting up at 10 o'clock this morning here on 92.9 The Ticket. Kickoff with Scott Zolak, Bob Sosi at a little after 1 o'clock this afternoon. We'll also talk Maine women's basketball. The schedule posted this week. We'll check in with Coach Richard Barron and some fantasy football, too, with our friend Dr. D, Craig Douglas. But we start things off this morning with a real treat, chance to talk to our friend Mark Duplass. You know him, of course, from the league. The 6th season debuted earlier this week. Matter of fact, the night the new season debuted, we talked with Mark on the telephone from Los Angeles. He's also got a wonderful new movie out called The One I Love with Elisabeth Moss. It's getting rave reviews, and an upcoming series for HBO with his brother Jay. Here's our conversation from earlier this week with actor Mark Duplass.
Yeah, you know, it was fun. We were all sort of fans of, like, The Twilight Zone, and one thing we love about that show is that it uses these sort of sci-fi concepts, but only uses them really to explore what's going on in sort of the human dynamics. And we just thought it would be a really fun thing to explore with couples, sort of, you know, this phenomenon we all notice, which is when you first start dating someone, you sort of, you know, give them the shiniest and best version of yourself. You know, you talk about all the museums you like to go to and all the books you love to read, and when in reality you're just sort of streaming bad reality TV shows at home. And then what do you do when they find out the real person you are? And how do you reconcile those two? You know, do you want the real one? Do you want the best one? And so the movie sort of stemmed from that.
Is that easier to play now that you've been married for a while? You've been with Katie for a long time. Can you? Not that I'm not indicating any problems, but but you can relate to that now.
No, I have a perfect marriage, Rich. What are you talking about? We never fight ever whatsoever. No, you know, Katie and I have been together for, I guess, 12 years now, and we've made lots of movies together where we explore relationships. It's one of our favorite things to do, and you know, it seems like the most impossible task in the world to remain together and to remain connected, and that to me leads to lots of funny and dramatic things. And so we will always be making movies about this and the ways that we falter in trying to keep a healthy relationship.
Well, I'm a big fan of Elisabeth Moss, of course, from Mad Men, but she's so great in this movie, and it's wonderful to see her in a contemporary setting. And I understand you guys were friends, and you kind of talked her into being in the movie.
Yeah, Lizzie is, you know, she's obviously got that wonderful dark side to her that we've seen in Mad Men, but when you hang out with her socially, she's very much just like a sweet, normal girl in a romantic comedy, you know? And so this movie was a perfect opportunity for her to show sort of, like you said, the contemporary version of herself, but also use some of that real sinister darkness we've seen from her in Mad Men, and the role actually begs her to show both of those sides.
Charlie McDowell's a first-time director. What was it about his idea that attracted you to the project?
You know, I met with Charlie, and he and I sort of birthed this idea together. It was an idea I had for a little while, just the germ of it, and I gave it to him and his writer, Justin, and they kind of fleshed it all out into this story. And, you know, Charlie's young, but he's really brilliant and very hungry, and he reminded me of, you know, myself and my brother when we came up to Millbridge, Maine, and made the puffy chair 10 years ago. And I was just like, you know what, this kid, if I give him a shot, he's going to be incredible. And he really pulled it off.
We're talking with Mark Duplass here on Downtown. The One I Love, available on video on demand and goes into wide release later on this week. Your films have always done very well on DVD and on Netflix. Having this VOD option, does that help you reach an even bigger audience than normal?
Yeah, I'm such a fan of video on demand, and it's becoming more popular, you know, for independent films. Because honestly, to me, you know, a lot of independent films, they only make it to about 50 cities, and then there are people, you know, for instance, in Millbridge, in Bangor, in Ellsworth, and they just don't have the theaters to support independent films. So being able to rent it, you know, on iTunes or on Amazon in your home the same time everybody else is watching it in the bigger cities, it's huge for me. And I get, tweets and emails and Facebook messages from people, who are just in this tiny town saying, I rented your movie and saw it. So I'm a big fan of it.
You're, of course, doing very well as an actor, a writer, director, producer. You appear in other people's films and a couple of big ones like Zero Dark 30 and Tammy. And I was reading an interview where you said for Tammy, your picture was up on a billboard in Los Angeles, and that gave you a little touch of the loss of relative anonymity. Is that something you ever want to venture into, where you become so big and so famous that you lose the ability to walk down the street with your family?
Well, here's the good news, Rich. It's not like I'm being offered the lead in Star Wars right now, so I don't have to worry about that. But yes, there was a moment when Tammy came out where I lost my privacy for a week, and when we were walking around, people were coming up and like, let's take pictures, let's talk about it, and it's in front of your kids, and you're like, ugh, I don't know if I like this too much. So I'm kind of enjoying my own little corner of the sandbox where, I can make my little movies like the one I love, and a dedicated group of people goes to see them, and it's, I can still walk the streets, and I don't have to wear a hat and sunglasses.
Also, yesterday, of course, on Netflix, the news of the 5th season of The League became available, and tonight, the debut of Season 6 with you and Katie and the cast. The show just seems to get more fun every year, and looks like it's a real labor of love for everybody to work on.
We've become so close with all the cast members of The League. I mean, honestly, they're like our brothers and sisters and cousins at this point. And so I think there's something to the more comfortable we get with each other off screen, it means the more comfortable we are doing worse and more terrible things to each other, because we all know we love each other, so it doesn't really affect us. And so the Season 6 will be, as extreme, if not more so, than what you've seen before.
So we can look for a lot of personal growth from the characters.
Yeah, exactly. The maturity level has stayed very squarely in 2nd to 3rd grade, so no worries.
Also, coming up in January, you and your brother Jay have got what sounds like a very exciting project coming to HBO. Can you tell us a little bit about Togetherness?
Yeah, Togetherness is a couples show. It stars me and Melanie Linsky as my wife, and our friend Steve Ziffis, who's been in a lot of our movies, and the actress Amanda Pete. We played two couples living under the same roof, and my brother and I wrote and directed every episode for HBO, and it's been really exciting because it's kind of a show about what Katie and I deal with a lot in our lives, which is you want to be a good spouse or child or parent and friend, but you also want to try to pursue your own personal dreams, and how do you reconcile those two? They seem to be constantly at odds with each other, and that's really what this show is about at its core, and it's a lot like, honestly, the movie The Puppy Chair we made. As I examined relationships for couples in their 20s, this is more about couples in their 30s.
And you've also got a new horror movie coming out, too, called Creep.
Yeah, this is something I'm really excited about. It's just there's two people in the movie, and it's almost like that old independent film, My Dinner with Andre, where it's just two people talking. This is this, but if it all went terribly, terribly awry. And I made it with one of my best friends, Patrick Bryce, and it's a tiny little movie, but it's one of my favorite things I've made in the last couple of years. And
things are going pretty well for the missus, too, working on Sea of Trees with Matthew McConaughey. That's pretty good company to keep. Yeah,
Katie is in the air right now, headed out to Boston, Worcester, to shoot her part in Sea of Trees, and I'm just so excited for her. I mean, she really, to work with Matthew McConaughey and these great scenes with him at this point in his career is just huge for her.
And that was Mark Duplass, who you can see every Tuesday on FXX on The League, talking about his new movie as well here from earlier in the week on Downtown with Rich Kimball. This is the best of Downtown here for the 7th day of September 2014. Glad to have you alongside with us for this edition. A lot of football talk ahead on this edition of the program, including when we come back from this first break. We'll hear from Kevin Duffy of the Springfield Republican, new on the beat, but he's the Red Sox reporter for that fine publication. He'll talk about the upcoming game later on this afternoon between the New England Patriots as they travel on the road to take on the Miami Dolphins. We'll check in with Kevin after this break here on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket.
Best of Downtown, a previously recorded edition of the program. On this football Sunday, the Patriots season opener coming up this afternoon against the Miami Dolphins. Kevin Duffy, brand new on the Patriots beat, covering the team for the Springfield Republican. We had a chance to preview the game with him on Fridays downtown.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's a really interesting situation. There's on that team and on that offense, there's many going into the opener, many situations and positions to be monitoring. The tight end position is, no one's really seen Gronkowski yet, so we don't know how healthy he is. But getting back to your question with Ridley, I've always, I just started, this is my first week on the beat actually, but I've obviously followed the Patriots growing up in Connecticut, and I've always believed Ridley is a highly talented running back. I think he's far and away the best between the tackles runner, and he and Vereen complement each other so well. I think last year, sometimes when he was benched, that stuff can kind of get to your head. And I just started covering the team, so I don't know that that's the case for sure. But, I think a fresh start for him and the opportunity to have the number one job without LeGarrette Blount kind of looking over his shoulder is an important thing for Ridley going forward.
So now I have to ask you, first week on the beat, so does that mean Coach Belichick invited you up to the office and broke bread with you and chatted about your background?
Oh, yeah, you know it. Far from it.
Well, at least in your first week, you got to see how the Patriots handled the whole injury situation with the mystery calf of Tom Brady.
Yeah, no, that was interesting. I mean, I was kind of prepped for that. I kind of knew going in that they're super secretive about the injuries, so we don't really get to watch practice much either. So I know that Brady was limited in practice. He was listed as limited participant. He's officially listed as questionable, but from all indications from other reporters who are pretty well sourced and have been covering the beat for a while, it seems likely that he's going to play. I don't think that it would be a shock, let's say, if he doesn't play on Sunday.
So as they look at this defense, do the Patriots feel like maybe the secondary is where they can exploit and have some success against the Dolphins?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Looking at this is, they're bringing in Darrelle Revis, who is probably the best cover corner in the league, and there's been a lot of debate actually since last night when you have Richard Sherman. Is Richard Sherman the best corner in the league? Well, he only plays on one side of the field. Revis, you can really move around, and adding him, and then when Brandon Browner comes back off his 4-game suspension, that's the one thing I think that they're going to be vastly improved from last year. Not that the defense was bad last year. At times it was, I think, just the lack of offensive playmakers that kind of, you got the feeling that they weren't going to be able to beat Denver in the playoff game because they couldn't keep up with Denver scoring-wise. But I think defensively they really have added some guys, and that's where I'd look to see the most improvement.
Now, for Miami, apparently an improved offensive line, but still not exactly a great running game to go with Ryan Tannehill. I wonder if that means the Patriots will maybe try and put some pressure on the quarterback, of figuring that this might be a bit of a one-dimensional offense. Yeah,
we're not really sure with Miami yet either. Miami is, and then that's one of the things going in. It's an unknown. I mean, Miami, Mike Wallace, the wide receiver, was quoted as saying that they only revealed between 12 and 15% of their offense in the preseason. Now, obviously, who knows if that's true? This is part of playing mind games with the opponent. But Miami has a whole new offensive line, a new offensive coordinator who was the quarterback's coach of the Eagles last year. So people expect them to kind of bring in the fast-tempo Chip Kelly offense almost. And they added Noshawn Moreno to go with Lamar Miller. So they have a 1-2 punch at running back, and no one's really sure how effective. I mean, Moreno was great last year for Denver because he was playing with Peyton Manning and running against. It's not like they were stacking the box against Moreno, So in Miami, it might be a little different for him this year. So we'll see. I mean, there's many unknowns. There's many elements going to this game, and we're just gonna have to watch it play out on Sunday.
What's your gut feeling, Kevin? How much do you think we'll see of Rob Gronkowski on Sunday?
That's a great question. I do think he'll play, but I think it'll be highly limited, personally. But that's not based off of that's pure speculation on my part. People, because
2 years ago we saw Adrian Peterson come back from an ACL injury within 8 months and rush for 2,000 yards. It's really hard to do that. He's not even 8 months removed from his surgery, Gronkowski is. So I wouldn't be surprised if they in the red zone, maybe they played him a little bit, but I don't think you're going to see him for the full game, and I think that they're going to ease him back in a little bit.
And that was Kevin Duffy of the Springfield Republican talking about the big 2004 season opener for the Patriots, which will get underway shortly after 1 p.m. But again, Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket is your coverage in your home for New England Patriots football all season long, including at 10 a.m., the pregame show right here on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket, leading you up to game time at 1 p.m. And then after the game, immediately afterwards, they're back on for a 3-hour postgame show. So if you love the New England Patriots like I do, stay tuned to 92.9 The Ticket for all the Patriots coverage that you need. We'll take another break here on the program. When we come back, we'll get off football for a little bit, but we'll talk with Maine women's basketball coach Richard Barron as he'll talk about the schedule release last week and some special events that the team will be hosting here in the next coming days and weeks. Another break approaching. Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket here, and you're listening to the best of downtown.
It's the best of downtown on your Sunday morning on 92.9 The Ticket.
No matter what you are, I will always be with you.
Rich Kimball and Brian Stackpole with you all around the world at 929theticket.com. Follow the program on Twitter at Downtown Rich K. We're on Facebook as well. Tomorrow, oh my goodness, big day for us. We celebrate our 3rd anniversary of the program, and we'll pretty much do it for the rest of the month because, well, we are party animals here at downtown.
We should just celebrate for a full year. Until the 4th year comes around, then we'll celebrate the 4th year.
Yeah, I like that sound, too.
Yeah.
Well, we'll next best thing. We'll just have a lot of great guests over the next year. How will that be?
That sounds good to me.
Our first guest ever on the show was Gary Tangway of Comcast Sportsnet. He'll join us tomorrow, plus Maine football coach Jack Cosgrove, Alan Adams of the Maine Edge, and a whole lot more. It's a great week of guests, including next Friday, documentarian Ken Burns joining us to talk about his brand new PBS series on the Roosevelts that starts 1 week from tonight. So that's going to be exciting this week as well. Earlier this week, we talked some basketball. The men's and women's schedules posted for the University of Maine teams, and a very challenging schedule for the Maine women this year, a schedule that also includes 17 home games. We talked about that and more with head women's coach Richard Barron.
Well, it's a tough schedule. It's good thing is we got a lot of home games. I'm afraid that it'll be really tough next year, but hopefully that's a senior-heavy team that can handle it. We've got some tough road games that will. Obviously, we just barely announced this season, so I don't need to get too far into next season, do I?
Well, no, but let's start. You mentioned home games, and what a great opportunity for fans. 17 home games this year.
Yeah, we've got a couple of exhibition games, teams that we've played against before, but not recently, McGill University in New Brunswick, which has been an annual event for several years. And so I think that's really exciting that we can, play in front of people and kind of get used to the facility and all that kind of stuff. Then we get on the road and we play at Bryant, come right back and play LIU that Sunday, and got home games with Harvard, Dartmouth, who else? Sacred Heart. We've got Boston College, Wright State, and Brown in our tournament. Everybody's familiar with Boston College. People pretty familiar with Brown, but I'm telling you, Wright State's probably the best team in that group. They were really, really good last year. So, it's a good. And then the game at North Carolina obviously kind of sticks out to everybody. That's a tough one, and it's going to be at Myrtle Beach. And then we got to turn right around and go up and play William and Mary. So.
That's a great opportunity. Yeah, the trip down to South Carolina. We call it a neutral court, but is it really a neutral court when you're in South Carolina playing the Tar Heels? I don't know.
Well, it's not. It's a game that they play. They play 2 games there every year. So this is something they've done for a long time. But it worked out well for us because we were able to get a guarantee out of it, which kind of financed our trip to then play at William and Mary. And so, we have to try to be pretty creative with our scheduling, both to manage getting home games, 1, and then 2, to be able to pay for, travel. It's tough in Maine. We're the furthest team from everybody else, so that means it costs more for us to go everywhere, and it makes it harder for us to get people here. So I'm really pleased with the schedule, considering all the obstacles we have to face to get it done.
Well, you're coming off one of the biggest turnarounds of any team in the country last year, a 17-win season, a trip to a postseason tournament for the first time in nearly a decade, your most wins in just about a decade as well. So there's a lot of excitement with a lot of people coming back from last year's team and a chance to take yet another step forward this year and playing in a great facility, too, at the Cross Center. We've talked about this in the offseason. We just need to get people there and see what a terrific product you have. And once they're there, they'll keep coming back.
Absolutely. I think they will. I think you've talked about a couple of different things there that are both important. One is that it's a great facility, and it's easy to get to, and we need people to come see us because they'll enjoy the venue. But I think also, when we look back to where we were 3 years ago when I got here, this program is on a completely different planet. The facility is part of it, playing at the Cross, but we just got the new locker rooms completed. We are moving in there this week with the first week of school. We've got we're getting new office spaces done, and so there's some facility improvements with Memorial Gym, the new field house, everything like the new scoreboard. There's just a different feeling with athletics in general. And then both the talent level and the confidence level of the kids that we have in the program now is completely different. So, this team, we have one senior, Courtney Anderson, who everybody knows was from Maine. Courtney was a walk-on the first year. So she's our only senior. So we have basically this team playing together for the next 2 years. So that's really exciting. And the majority of them played for us last year, returned from what was such a good team. So I think there's a great opportunity. And I think the league is wide open. One of the things that we talked about this summer, Rich, was that Albany would be the clear-cut favorite. They're probably still the favorite, but maybe not as clear-cut. Their 6'9" post player decided not to play her senior year. So that changes things for them, and then certainly how they'll play teams.
We're talking with Maine coach Richard Barron. Tickets, by the way, available for the Black Bears, 581-BEAR. Of course, you can contact the Cross Center as well. And you really get things kicked off this weekend with what sounds like a terrific event, a little barbecue for fans of the team to kick things off.
Yeah, we've got a lot going on here. In September, we've got the Black Bear, welcome back barbecue at the House of Maria Baeza. It's a friends group event, but we would love to have new Friends members. And so anybody who's interested, please get in touch with Tracy Garrett, and we would love to have you there. We have a coaches clinic again on September 21st. That's a Sunday. Van Chancellor will be coming back, who is a Hall of Fame coach, both Naismith and the Women's Basketball College Hall of Fame, former Comets and Olympic coach for the USA. And then Dean Lockwood will be coming up from the University of Tennessee staff, former men's coach at the Division I level, was an assistant at Tennessee who hired me to work camps when I was 18 years old. Dean has been on Tennessee's women's staff for several years and worked with Pat Summitt. He's a great coach and terrific guy. So we're very excited about that. And anybody who's not a coach is just interested as a Friends member to come. We're allowing them to come for $25 to sit through the clinic. So we hope that we'll see a lot of people out. And this is a chance to not only learn a little bit about basketball, but also support the program at the same time because the proceeds directly help the program.
Absolutely. All sponsored by your friends at Courtyard Marriott. Again, it's the 21st from 12 until 6. So big things happening, as always, with the women's basketball program as we swing into the school year. It's got to be great to walk around on campus and see players there.
Yeah, it's really been a fun week. There's a lot of energy. We've got 5 new players, 4 freshmen, one's a transfer. They're fitting in very well. There's a lot of chemistry with this team, you can tell already, and a different level of leadership with that many upperclassmen coming back with so much game experience. The workouts we've already had some are going very well. They're in the morning. This morning I pulled into the parking lot at 5:30 this morning, and the players were arriving at the same time. We had a 6 a.m. workout, and everybody was in good spirits. So that's saying something. If you can get college kids to go work out at 6 a.m. and they're having fun doing it, you really got something you can work with there.
Saw a bunch of your players, too, at the football game over the weekend out there supporting their fellow Black Bears.
Yeah, they were out also talking to people about season tickets. And I tell you, not just for women's basketball, but for all of our sports, one of the best ways that we can support, you can support athletics is just come to the games. The revenue from ticket sales is every bit as valuable to us as a donation. So it means even more because we have you in the stands cheering for us. It gives us a huge advantage. So we've just got to figure out a better way to get out and market and reach out to people and connect with people. I know that if we do that and continue to the efforts that we've already started, people will be pleased with the product. They're good kids. They're hard workers. They're good role models. We've got especially on our team some really, really bright kids. We had a 3.4 GPA this past year, so I'm ready to show them off. I'm very, very proud of them. So anything we can do, whether it's getting out and doing tailgates at the football game or going to read at schools or volunteering at soup kitchens, we really enjoy that, and it's a great chance for us to show them off.
And that was Maine women's basketball coach Richard Barron talking about the schedule release for the upcoming 2014-15 season and also some special events that the team will be hosting before and leading up to the regular season. You're listening to the Best of Downtown here, this Sunday morning edition. Thanks again for joining us for this program, which premieres and debuts every single Sunday, a new edition, which is previously recorded every Sunday at 7 to 8 a.m. Another break approaching, but this time after the break, we'll go back to football. And we'll talk a little bit more about this big New England Patriots-Miami Dolphins game, but we'll go from the other perspective, the Miami Dolphins perspective, with Andrew Abramson of the Palm Beach Post. That coming up after the break here on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket.
Hey, it's the Best of Downtown on your Sunday morning, September 7th. Rich Kimball and Brian Stackpole with you. Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket and 929theticket.com, your home for Patriots football.
Wake up, Maggie, I think I got something to say to you.
We got the pregame show with Gresh and Tank starting at 10 this morning. Game time. It's Bob Sosi and Scott Zolak bringing it all your way on 92.9 The Ticket. And, we do this. We talked about it the other day. Nobody else does this. The Boston stations don't even do this. We talk Patriots football. Sure, we get the Patriots perspective, but we also go to the opposition to get their side of things as well. And this past week, we had a chance to get out to Florida and talk with Andrew Abramson, who covers the Dolphins for the Palm Beach Post, and get his thoughts on this matchup from the Miami perspective.
Yeah, and we really haven't seen much of it this preseason. Obviously, the Dolphins have been holding back a lot under new offensive coordinator Bill Lazor, so certainly we will see the debut on Sunday, and it should be interesting. I think what we do know is we're going to see a crisper offense, a faster offense than a year ago. And the biggest thing to me is actually the most simple thing, that they want to run the ball more. Last year, they had no success running the ball. They had one of the worst pass-to-run ratios in the NFL. So I think that's going to be a big emphasis, is getting the ground game going. My concern is more about the offensive line than the actual running backs. I like the addition of Noshawn Moreno, but I do have some run-blocking concerns, especially with Miami guards.
Well, and of course, that was an emphasis in the offseason, not only with the draft, but with some free agent signings as well. It looks, at least on paper, like it should be an improved line.
Well, I think the tackles are much better, and I think pass protection is going to be a lot improved. You look at Brandon Albert on the left side now, Pro Bowler coming over from Kansas City. They drafted Jawan James in the first round. He's their right tackle. I'd be stunned if they come anywhere close to the 58 sacks they allowed last year. I'm still amazed that Ryan Tannehill survived that. But it's the guards that I'm concerned about. Right now they got Darren College at left guard and Shelley Smith at right guard. Nobody really stepped up and won that job in the preseason. I think those guys kind of got it by default. Mike Pouncey's also out for a few weeks, and they got Samson Tatelli in at center. So I like the tackles, a little bit concerned about the guards, and the run blocking to me could be an issue.
What does Ryan Tannehill have to do to up his game this year?
I mean, I still think the big missing thing in his game is that deep ball accuracy. And, it's just something that's been talked about since last year, since they got Mike Wallace. It's kind of amazing to me a year after they brought in Mike Wallace, we're still talking about the two of them building chemistry together. You just would have assumed by now they would have it down, but they don't. And, Tannehill's short and intermediate game is actually pretty good. He's got a lot of good slot receivers to work with, Brandon, Gibson, Jarvis Landry. He's got a reliable outside guy in Hartline. And Wallace, to me, is actually a guy who had a career-high 71 receptions last year. I think he's going to have even more catches. They're going to move him around the field. They've even experimented with him in the slot. So in that way, I think he's actually going to have a good year. It's just, he was brought here to be that speedy, deep threat. That's why they're paying him $15.5 million this year. And Tannehill and him just are still not connecting on that deep ball.
We're talking with Andrew Abramson. He covers the Dolphins for the Palm Beach Post. On the defensive side of things, Oliver Vernon coming off a great year, 11.5 sacks. Is it safe to say that that defensive line is the strength of the Miami defense?
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, they lost a defensive tackle in Paul Soliai, who was pretty good, but I don't think that's going to hurt them too much. They got some really good pass rushers. They got Cam Wake. They got Olivier Vernon. Those guys are back. The tackle, they still have Randy Starks, Jared Odrick. They added Earl Mitchell from Houston. So I really like what they're doing there. My concern is more with the linebackers in the secondary. I have some issues there.
Hey, who's the best guy back there? Is Grimes maybe the best guy in the secondary going in?
Oh, yeah, Grimes, no doubt. I mean, he had a career season last year, Pro Bowl season. It'll be interesting to see if he can keep that up last year. I think it was a little bit of a surprise because when the Dolphins signed him last year, he was coming off the Achilles injury. He had missed a season with Atlanta. There weren't a lot of huge expectations, and he just had that breakout year last season. It's funny because there's this idea in Miami that the secondary is a strength of the team, and I'm just not so sure. I like Grimes. I think losing safety Rashad Jones to a 4-game PED suspension, that hurts them. Cortland Finnegan's their other cornerback. This is a guy who, a few years ago in Tennessee was a top cornerback, really had a couple down years in St. Louis. They got a safety from Detroit, Louis Delmas. He's a very aggressive guy, but he had some tackling issues in the preseason. So, I don't know. I mean, I don't think the secondary is bad by any means, but I don't know if it's as good as some people think.
Obviously, everybody feels like the Patriots are clearly the team to beat in the division, but everybody also seems to say if anybody can knock them down, it'll be the Dolphins this year. What will it take for this Dolphins team to be a 10 or 11 win team and contend for the title?
Man, 10 or 11. I mean, first of all, that the offense, the Bill Lazor offense, everything's going to have to go right. Tannehill's going to really have to take his game to the next level, develop that deep ball, become accurate, better pocket awareness. The offensive line will obviously have to block well. That's a major issue. And the linebackers, they really struggled last year, and they brought in some high-priced guys in Phillip Wheeler and Janelle Ellerby who really didn't live up to it. They shuffled the guys around a little bit. They still got the same 3 starting linebackers, but now Koa Misi's the middle linebacker. They would have to really raise their game to the next level. I'm thinking if the Dolphins compete for a playoff spot, if they're a wild card team, I got them anywhere from 7 to 9 wins. But, there's a lot of parity in this league, and there's a lot of good teams. I mean, look, you got your favorites like the Patriots and the Broncos and those kind of teams. And after that, I think a lot of teams are even. So, if all goes right, the Dolphins could have a surprisingly good season.
Last year, obviously, the off-field issues had to be an impact, had to be a distraction for the players, and the search for leadership, of course, is an ongoing thing for any team. And very interesting, you wrote about the fact that despite some of his off-field troubles, Mike Pouncey has been placed in a leadership position. They don't do captains under Coach Joe Philbin, but he's a member of the Leadership Council.
Yeah, it was kind of a surprise to me because what's interesting about Pouncey is, from outside, you look, and there's been a lot of issues. He was involved in that bullying scandal, even though I think a lot of the players think that whole thing was overblown. He's had a couple of off-the-field issues. He had to go up to Massachusetts, testify in the Aaron Hernandez case. There was subpoenaed up there. He just has, it seems like there's been some fight issues. But from talking to people on the team, coaching staff, management, I think they really believe in Mike Pouncey. They believe he's a leader. And maybe they think it's just, one of those kind of things where, bad timing kind of issues from Mike Pouncey, overblown stuff. But it still surprises me because to me, with everything that happened off the field last year, if I were them, I'd say to Mike Pouncey, we're not going to put you in a leadership role this year. We just want to see you have a season where you're not in the headlines and where you're just playing. But then again, it could be an issue where his teammates just really respect him and they felt like they had to give him that role. So kind of interesting to see his name there for sure.
So what do you think for Sunday? Can the Dolphins come out of the gate here and put a little message out there for the rest of the division against the Pats?
I think they can. I mean, I have New England winning the game. I picked the Patriots 28-21, but Miami won the game down here last year. They actually hung tight with the Patriots in New England last year. If you remember, they were winning 17-3 at halftime. Totally blew the second half. But I think they've shown they can match up with New England. I do think the Patriots are better this year, obviously, with Darrelle Revis, getting some of their defensive linemen back. But I think, with the humidity, with the weather, the Dolphins have been practicing in this. They got some talented players. If the Bill Lazor offense comes out and looks something like that Eagles offense that he worked with last year, then yeah, I think there's definitely a chance the Dolphins can win this game.
And that was the Miami Dolphins perspective from Andrew Abramson of the Miami Post as the big game coming up at 1 p.m. Again, Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket is your home for New England Patriots football all season long, including this Sunday, today. Yes, that's right. The football season does begin in earnest for the New England Patriots today, and you can catch all the action starting at 10 a.m. with the pregame show right here on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. We'll take another break on the program. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit more football, this time in a fantasy variety with Dr. D, Craig Douglas. He'll give you the last little bit of information, some tinkering you can do with your roster before the big games approach, coming up later this afternoon. You're listening to the Best of Downtown here on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket.
Best of Downtown Sunday morning, previously recorded edition of the program. Well, you can't talk football without talking fantasy football, and to do that every week throughout the season, we call on our resident expert. I mean, if you can be a resident expert when you're based in Chicago, but we think of him as our resident expert. He's Dr. D, Craig Douglas, who went to the fantasy mailbag and answered some questions heading into week one. But a lot of hype about the Packers being a strong contender in the NFC, but it sure looked like they would have their hands full, especially with the way that defense played. I think it was just, 255 total yards for the Packers last night.
Yeah, and I don't even think the Packers threw the ball to Richard Sherman's side. So if that's a reoccurring theme all year, you only have to play defense on half the field. That's going to be a huge advantage. And boy, that offense was with Percy Harvin out there. It was very dynamic and scary, to be honest.
No doubt about that. All right, well, let's get to the mailbag, and already got some questions for week one that people want to know. We start with Matt from Bangor, who says, Dr. D, what should I make of the Detroit backfield? Are either Bush or Bell running back two when both are healthy?
Yeah, it's interesting. Last year we got our first taste of, Joik and Reggie kind of in the backfield together. Again, you don't get a large taste because it always seems like one of them is injured. But, for the first 3 games of last year, they both were healthy, and they both put out pretty good numbers. Reggie Bush, 254 yards combined rushing, 179 yards receiving with 2 scores. Joik Bell, very similar, 119 yards rushing, 177 yards receiving with 3 touchdowns. So those are running back 2 numbers. You're going to get, about 80 yards and score from easily these guys. They could also break out. They have that ability to do that, which is great. And that's what you want from a running back too. Around that, 14, 13 points, you're going to, be in a very good shape to win. So I definitely think they're running back twos. I don't downgrade them. Don't put either of them on your bench. And yeah, I think if, you can hit it right and one gets hurt and it's not the one you have, then you're really sitting pretty.
All right, that's good. I have Reggie Bush, so that's good news. Thank you.
There you go.
All right. Edgar from Herman writes in and says, I have Andy Dalton as my starting quarterback this week against what looks to be a stout Baltimore defense. Does it make sense to add a guy like Carson Palmer or maybe even a Geno Smith this week?
This is a great question. It's always tough to make these predictions week one because you haven't really seen any of these defenses play fully. Like, you've seen them a little bit in the preseason, but again, that's such a small sample. And again, are they really running all the schemes that they're going to the regular season? But Baltimore does look good. They're always, one of those top-tier defenses that are really tough. And Andy Dalton historically has struggled against, their secondary especially. So I like Andy Dalton for the season. I really think, a lot of people have him downgraded as, a mid-tier to a low-tier quarterback, when really he puts up strong numbers. With, I think Tyler Eifert's going to be great this year. A.J. Green obviously there. And I love their two running back scheme that they look like they're going to have. Those guys can catch, they can run. It's going to be a dynamic team. But for this week, I really like Carson Palmer. I think he's playing against a soft San Diego defense. They have no pass rush. If he's a quarterback who, if you give him time, because he's a little older, Rich, you got to give him a little bit of time in the pocket, and then he can just, throw it to Larry Fitzgerald, Michael Floyd. I like that switch this week. I think Palmer's your guy for this week, and then you make the switch back to Andy Dalton for the rest of the season.
Why did you personalize that when you talked about a little older and mentioned me?
No, I know Stack's in there, and you got, there's just a little bit of, you guys have a lot of chemistry that you have back many, many years.
Yeah, that's what. All right, there we go. I feel better. Finally, from the mailbag, Chad from Orono's. He's talking about Stack's man, Andre Ellington. He says, if Ellington can't go this week due to his foot, should I play his backup or a guy like Sean Green?
Yeah, so the word came down yesterday. Ellington has been struggling with like a little foot injury, re-aggravated it in Thursday's practice. So, boy, that would be a huge hit to a lot of fantasy owners who really, like Stacks, had him pegged as, a top 7 or 8 guy this year. His backup, obviously, is Jonathan Dwyer. Jonathan Dwyer has been in the league for, 3 or 4 years. He's quiet. He averages 4 yards a carry, but he's never really had a game where he's carried the ball more than 9 times. So he's not a workhorse back. He doesn't score touchdowns. He's very hit or miss, and he misses a lot. But then you get a guy like Sean Green, who's really sitting on your bench. The Titans have, made it known that Bishop Sankey is not going to be their number 1 guy to start the year. He's actually number 2 on the depth chart. I really see a split carry there between the two, but you get the fact that Sean Green is going to get those goal line carries. So if you can squeak out a touchdown, I think you go with Green over Dwyer. But boy, you're hoping that Ellington goes this week for sure.
All right, it sounds good. Now, Craig, are you actually going to the Bears game?
I am not, unfortunately. I wish I was. It's going to be, electric there, but I like to sit on my couch and pretend like I'm at all the games, Rich.
And that was the Dr. D, Craig Douglas, with all your fantasy football advice. Again, if you have a question for Dr. D, you can post it right on the Facebook page at facebook.com/downtown with Rich Kimball, and we'll get that to Craig. Or if you have his secret special email address, you can shoot him an email at any time, and he'll answer it in his mailbag every single Friday on Downtown with Rich Kimball. The Downtown program, of course, is broadcast to you every single day on the weekdays, Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. We'll be celebrating our 3rd-year anniversary on the program this upcoming week, including our rap battle finale coming up, hopefully at the end of the week as well. So stay tuned to that. Again, Downtown with Rich Kimball, Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. right here on The Ticket. We'll take our final break on the program. When we come back, we'll preview what's ahead on the week of Downtown with Rich Kimball, as well as set you up for all the stuff going on right here on The Ticket on this broadcast on a beautiful Sunday morning. We'll be back here in just a moment on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket and the best of Downtown. Measure these things by your grace.
Wrapping it up for a Sunday morning best of Downtown 92.9 The Ticket. Patriots football pregame starts at 10 this morning. Lock it in. Check it out here on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. Thanks to everybody on the program today. Craig Douglas, our fantasy guru, Dr. D, Andrew Abramson of the Palm Beach Post, Maine basketball coach Richard Barron, Kevin Duffy of the Springfield Republican, and, of course, actor Mark Duplass of the FXX series The League. I mean, you talk fantasy football, man. Is your league, are you in any league that's anything like The League on The League?
Not where we all get together and live draft and all that stuff, but we do have a league Rafi.
Do you have a Rafi in your league?
We
Wow.
do. It's my good buddy from college, and he just drafts crazily, and he just says outlandish things, so I'm glad he's in the league.
Do you have an Andre?
I'm sure I've got an Andre. I'd have to think about it, but I'm sure there's one.
Well, it's a great show, and it was awesome to have Mark Duplass talking about the new season with us. And if you get a chance, video on demand and in wide release this coming week, his new movie with Mad Men's Elisabeth Moss called The One I Love. Thanks to all of them for being with us. Don't forget, tomorrow morning, Dale Duff, Clem Labrie get you started, and then put on your party hat Even if you don't have one, come to our little party as we celebrate the 3rd anniversary of Downtown tomorrow afternoon at 4 o'clock. Gary Tangway, Jack Cosgrove, Alan Adams, and who knows who might show up in what should be a great week as we kick off the 4th year of Downtown. And it's all right here on 92.9 The Ticket. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Sit back and most of all, enjoy the football today. The NFL is here. We'll see you tomorrow afternoon at 4 on Downtown.